Welcome, you are listening to the Twice Over Movies podcast. In these first few episodes, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes explaining who we are and what we're doing with this podcast and website. So as you can tell, this podcast is specifically about movies. My name is Faraz and I'll be hosting each episode alongside a rotating co-host between Fahad, Yusuf, and Faaraan. Each episode is for one movie. We will spend 10 to 20 minutes discussing our scores without giving away any major spoilers. Afterwards, we will have a spoiler alert, and then we will dive into a deeper discussion into the movie. And that will go as long as it goes, maybe 15 to 45 additional minutes. Our scores are broken into 5 segments of a movie. First, acting, defined as the execution of the writing and story by the actors. Second, direction and plot, defined as the entertainment value, pace, and audience connection. Third is the writing, which is defined as primarily the dialogue. Fourth is the cinematography and photography, defined as the visual appeal of the movie. Fifth, themes and motifs, defined as the presentation of the underlying message and/or idea. For each of these categories, we assess if it was substantive, purposeful, logical, engaging, satisfying, clear, consistent, etc. This is where the website comes into play. Depending on how you order the importance of the categories mentioned, you will get a composite score indicating the strength of the movie on your standards. Currently, you will see a score based only on how the host rated the movie, but we have every intention to include you into the process to add a community score alongside the host score. We hope you enjoyed the podcast, continue listening, and support us. Now on to the episode.
Do you realize that fluoridation is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot we have ever had to face? Talk and play a dead game, soldier. That's nice shooting, soldier. Mandrake, come here.
You calling me, Jack?
Come over here and help me with this fella.
I haven't had very much experience, with those sort of machines, Jack. I've only ever pressed a button in my old Spitfire.
Mandrake, in the name of Her Majesty and the Continental Congress, come here and feed me this bell, boy.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Twice Over Movies podcast. This is your host, Faraz.
And this is your host, Faaraan.
Okay, all right, today we're discussing Dr. Strangelove. Let's just say the whole title here. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. 1964 movie directed by Stanley Kubrick.
I forgot that was the full title. I totally forgot about that.
I mean, I remember because I've seen the posters of it, and you have Dr. Strangelove in big lettering, and then you have that, which looks like a
subtitle.
Yeah, but it's actually the part of the title.
Right, yeah. So it's Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Oh my god, that's just genius, man. This is my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie, and one of my favorite movies of all time. It's kind of similar to The Great Dictator, the Charlie Chaplin movie, and I feel like there was probably some inspiration from that movie for this one.
Definitely to some degree. I feel like The Great Dictator is one of the first prominent satire political movies. So no matter what, this would be somewhat, I guess, inspired by it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just, it's really a better movie overall. Great Dictator is great for its time and it was brave, but this is even still, this was just 1964 and we're out 55 years later. And oh my god, that's a long time. And it's still amazing. So let's get into our scores. What do you got? Where do you want to start?
Let's just start with the acting. This is a very well acted movie. Talk about Peter Sellers. This guy is a beast. He plays 3 different characters in this movie. Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, President Muffley, and Dr. Strangelove. And he's incredible in all 3 characters. And then General Ripper, General Turgidson, all these guys are hilarious.
Major King Kong.
Yeah, Major Kong is amazing with his accent. And I mean, I guess he's a Western film actor. So I was reading up on it. He does mainly Westerns, and Stanley Kubrick basically told him that this is a serious war movie. So when he was acting all his lines out, he was doing it with the idea that this is a serious war movie.
Really? I didn't know that. His name is
Yeah.
Slim Pickens. Like that's his name, Slim Pickens.
Yeah, Slim Pickens. All right, so like my acting score is a 90. I thought it was very good.
What do you think my score is?
Probably 100.
It's 100. Let's just be honest. It's 100. It's amazing. There's not one poorly acted role in this whole entire film. Arguably, maybe one or two of the comments from the guys in the plane, but what? That's it for a movie that's kind of like as heavily casted as this one is. Everybody's amazing. Everybody is just amazing in this movie, and not even just amazing. Like the people who are the main characters are, I mean, they do little things here and there that just really embody the character. So 100 for me.
I can honestly see why people could give it 100. It really, the only thing is, I guess I just don't like that old actor feel that you have. But it's just an old movie, so maybe I'm being unfair. Whatever. I mean, I give it a 90. I don't think that's unfair at all. All right, so let's go to the writing. I also gave this a 90. This is a really funny movie. The exchanges and dialogues in the movie are just great with all the characters, from like the Russian ambassador, the generals, the president, Dr. Strangelove. It's all amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I also gave it a 90. It's just the story and well, that's a different category, but just the way that the characters interact with each other is it's all very natural. No, you don't see anybody waiting around for their lines like they used to do. I mean, remember, this is 64. This is incredibly sophisticated acting for movies of that age. So I gave it a 90 only because a lot of the dialogue that Peter Sellers does is actually improvised. So it's technically not written. It's just him.
But if you I mean if you're going in to watch the movie and you didn't like read that beforehand, you're just gonna assume it's part of the writing.
And that's why he was just amazing, because he does it so well.
You mentioned the story, so let's go to that next. The direction, the plot. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I gave it an 85. If it was just like in terms of what happens and things of like the actual story and plot, I'd probably rate it a little less. It's not a whole lot that happens, but what I love about this movie is it just escalates to every single new event makes the whole thing a little bit more engaging, and there's actually a lot going on, and it's actually quite complex, but it's still very, very easy to follow what's going on.
Yeah, so I actually agree with you 100% there. I gave it an 80, but I had like the same notes. Like the movie or the story in the movie is moving kind of quickly if you're thinking about it. And then you have three like settings, right? You have the airplane, you have
Hmm.
the war room, and then you have the base where where that General Ripper is just going crazy.
Yeah.
And so like consider you only have three settings. The story's moving pretty fast paced, but it's very easy to keep up, and you don't get lost. Like you don't get confused on like what's happening. Everything is explained pretty well. And again, it is simple, but at the same time, there is a decent amount happening. So pretty impressive. I gave it an 80.
Yeah.
All right, so next one, the cinematography, photography. Again, this is an older movie. This is the one place where I guess age does show a little bit. I gave it a 60.
Yeah, I gave it. I would agree with you for the most part. I mean, it's 60. I mean, it's not the strongest part of this film. This is not the reason I chose the movie. I gave it a 70. Here's why I gave it a 70. I think that there's the music that they use at certain points in this movie are really well placed, and I think that ties into the cinematography as well. And there are a couple of shots that I thought were really, really nice and really cool looking. Other than those, there's really not a whole lot going on. There's a lot of, what would you say, like tape being used, especially with the
Yeah, like
airplane when
stock footage or something.
stock footage. A lot of stock footage. So I gave it a 70. I mean, that's not going to be the reason you watch this movie.
Yeah, it's not. All right, so themes and motifs. I gave it an 85. Again, themes and motifs are strong. It's you got like the whole war, the politics. You have the quote unquote enemy or other, in this case being the communist Russia, and it's just poking fun at it and like how ridiculous it can be. So I thought it did a very good job of that. Give it an 85.
Yeah, dead on, man. I also gave it an 85. I agree with you. There's some really, really cool satire going on. So, like next level satire. And it's like that's not necessarily like that's not even Kubrick's like forte. So it's still amazing that he did it this well.
That's true, actually. Yeah. I mean, what other really funny movie did he do?
I mean, I'm no expert on the guy, but I can't think of one.
Yeah, I mean,
Think about the other movies that he's done. He's done some movies that are like very, very intense. Clockwork Orange, movies like that. I mean,
The Shining, Full Metal Jacket,
those are
2001.
intense, intense
Yeah.
movies where, I mean, maybe there's a little bit of comedy here and there. Nothing like this.
I haven't seen all of his movies, so he might have some comedy, but yeah, the ones I have seen,
Yeah.
definitely not comedy. Okay, so let's make this point the spoiler alert. Anything we say now, we'll discuss the movie in its entirety. We might discuss spoilers. All right, Faran. So, as far as a discussion of this movie, you were telling me how you are realizing how similar it is to The Great Dictator, and how there might not be much to talk about.
Oh my god, I can go on about this. I can go on and on about this movie, but I just don't want to. I mean, the things that are similar to Great Dictator are the historical kind of where this movie is placed historically. 1964. It is about the Cold War. It's about the arms race between America and Russia, a militaristic there's a competition on who's trying to get the leg up on the other. And this movie is more, it's in the middle of that whole thing, so that's really cool. Great Dictator was kind of like a call to arms to saying, look, there's this injustice happening, we need to get involved. This is like, look at the stupid crap that's happening, let's laugh about it, and let's realize how ridiculous this is. So this is like a reverse call to arms.
Yeah, so that actually leads me to a question I had about it. Now, this movie, like we both said, is really funny. Do you think this movie was too comedic to actually serve as like a serious critique of the Cold War?
I don't think so. I think looking back, it's even more powerful than it might have been during the time. I don't know. I just say that kind of just off the top of my head, but I don't think so. I think it's still a very powerful movie. If you sit down and you just kind of think about what actually is happening what actually is happening, and the metaphors that they draw, in certain situations. Yeah, it's actually still. I think it's still really, really, really powerful. Like it just goes on. Like there's just so many quotes in here where I'm just like, that's genius.
Such as?
For instance, when they're talking about the casualties that are going to come as a result of
Yeah.
the plane bombing the one of the nuclear bases in Russia, and Turgidson says, "Mr. President, I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed, but I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed tops." And he says this like happily, like he's proud. Like those are the only casualties we're going to serve. And so I think that's kind of I think that's meant to be like a statement, a satire, and this is throughout the whole movie of how lightly politicians, how lightly they take casualties and how they make light of such a huge, huge issue.
Yeah, how far removed they are from like
Right.
the actual.
That's the whole movie. The comedy in the whole movie plays off of how, kind of like, there's this inevitable doom that everybody's going to that everybody's going to face, and nobody can catch a break. There's no solving it. And so like, just sit back and watch. I feel like that's kind of the comedy.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I thought one of the quotes that you were going to mention was when General Turgidson and the Russian ambassador are basically arguing when the Russian ambassador comes. He's like,
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
exactly, yeah. I think that's like an iconic line.
I mean, there's just a bunch. There's just a bunch. I wrote down a couple, but they're all over this movie. So when you sit down and you think about what that actually is saying about America's involvement in the Cold War and all of this stuff, I think it's still very powerful.
It's sprinkled in other ways too. If you notice at the base, again, General Ripper has lost his mind and decided to go through with what is this, Code R or Plan R? On the base, there's this big billboard, and it says on the billboard, "Peace is our profession." And at the same
Wow.
time, you have basically Americans killing Americans here because one part of the military is going into the base to overtake it to stop Plan R from happening. It's just the irony of it, and then the satire is just on point.
Yeah, I think there's a statement there about like when the authority is telling you to do something ridiculous, maybe you ought to just look to some your own like intellect a little bit. Just be a little conscious of what's going on.
Oh yeah, that's definitely one of the themes in this movie that's trying to point out is how the bureaucracy that you have in the military and
Right,
the authoritative hierarchy, and that how orders are like followed no matter what. Like if it's a superior, you follow it. I mean, the whole situation at the base with like Captain Mandrake, and like once General Ripper dies and kills himself in the bathroom, Captain Mandrake becomes next in line, and he, like, they're doing is saying, "This is my position. You need to respect that. You have to listen to me. These are my orders."
right. You know what's amazing that this here's something that I was thinking about. Here's a question. Well, I don't even know if it's a question, but this is such a like catastrophic event at the end of this movie. I mean, this this string of bombs goes off that is destroying the whole world, and you have like this joyous song at the end while that's all happening. Who's the villain in this movie, or how many villains do you think there are? I think in a movie typically that has this kind of a catastrophic ending, somebody's in the wrong. Who do you think is in the wrong? There's one that's obvious.
The obvious will be what? General Ripper for
Yeah,
calling Plan R?
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the one that you would go to, but I think the movie is trying to say more, right? There is
yeah.
no enemy and everyone's the victim.
Right. Well, I think you notice that even after the Doomsday device like pretty much kind of goes off, and like the bombing has already happened. So now the Doomsday device is going to go off, and they're talking about repopulating, and all of that stuff. Who's going to go in
And
the?
Doctor Strangelove is like creepily like
Yeah,
excited about it.
yeah. He's what a well acted character. You see how he talks about the Doomsday device with such wonder. Like
Yeah.
it's like he's talking about like like butterflies. That's this, Peter Sellers acted every single one of his characters perfectly.
Yeah.
They're all believable. Each of them is so distinct. They have their own whole life story and they each have their own accent and their own mannerisms, and he just nails every single one of them. They're all so different, but he plays them all so well. I like that's one of the best This is probably one of the best acting performances that I think I've seen in a movie from one character.
No, this isn't the first time I've seen the movie, right? So this time around, I knew that he played these three different characters.
Right.
I'm pretty sure the first time I saw it, I had no idea.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Actually, the first like 3 or 4 times I saw it, I had no idea. We saw it in a class that I took in undergrad,
Yeah.
and then that's when the guy was like, "So this Peter Sellers plays 3 characters," and I'm like, "What? Who are you talking about?" And then I watched it, and I'm like, "Oh, Then it clicked. But I was trying to make a point, and I kind of forgot what it was. But I think that the villain is the arms race and the people who are perpetrating this arms race. Because after Jack Ripper, everyone's just trying to do what's right on by them. Nobody can catch a break. They're just trying to
Yeah.
do things, but there's already a set of events that's been set in motion that nobody has any power over. And I think that that's one of the statements in this film is this is the extreme possibility of us having this nuclear the stalemate with another country. This is what's eventually going to come of this is just total destruction.
Yeah. So, well, okay. Speaking of Doctor Strangelove and his affection for like restarting the world,
Yeah.
he gets into like the details of like, all right, we're gonna go in the mines. We're gonna get 10 women for each man. They have to be obviously attractive because
No, the way he says it is so scientific. He says they're going to be selected for their sexual characteristics, of which will be an enticing nature for sure, or something along those lines. And he's like, we're going to be busy, but that's just the sacrifice we're gonna have to make.
sacrifice. Yeah. Wait, so what was going on with his right hand? Like how he can't control it? Like it has its own. Like I didn't understand what that was.
So I was reading about that. They after this movie, somebody discovered like there's like this condition where people cannot control their hand. They named it Doctor Strangelove syndrome after this movie.
Oh,
After the
really?
Yeah, I think it's this might be reaching, but he's German and he revoked basically his German citizenship. Now he's a U.S. citizen, and he keeps saying "my Führer."
Hey, so did he really revoke it? Like, it's a part of him that's still there.
Right. So that's the whole thing. Is like there's a part of this guy who used to be Hitler's. He might have been Hitler's like main dude. He's like a Nazi at heart, or he used to be a Nazi, and that part of him still is. So I think that's like the
Yeah,
thing.
and automatically does the Nazi
So,
one hand
yeah,
salute.
and he's like choking himself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just incredible, incredible. Did you notice the ambassador, the Russian ambassador,
Mhm.
Kisov,
Yeah.
was like cracking up?
Oh, yeah? No, I
He was
didn't.
breaking character. I didn't even cut it. He was breaking character.
Well, like, no, I mean, I can see why you would. He was the funniest part of the movie was the ending to me. Like when he's so ready and excited about the possibility of restarting, but he gets up out of his wheelchair. He's like, "Mein Führer, I can walk."
Yeah, that's the last quote that I have on here. I love.
Perfect ending.
Yeah,
I heard that this was not even the main ending. It was supposed to be like a food fight or something. And
really.
yeah, and this since this came out like a year after or how recent after JFK's assassination, they didn't want to show the president like I guess being hit with a bunch of food or pies or something like
You
that.
know what? There's got to be an influence then from Great Dictator. You remember that food fight from that scene or from that
Yeah,
movie?
yeah, yeah. No, no, for sure. Yeah, we talked about that food fight. So
Man,
no, yeah, for sure, it has to be influenced from there in some way. But apparently, that was supposed to be the ending, and then they changed it to this one. But this one was better.
you know what I really liked in the what was like your favorite scene, and I could kind of tell you my
My favorite scene,
or just moment. Is it the ending for you?
yeah, actually, I would say it's like the final plane scene because that plane scene is pretty long, where Major Kong is communicating the orders and like it's not working because the plane's been damaged by an earlier missile, and like it's a pretty long scene. It's like 7 like straight minutes of them in the plane and they're just preparing for the final drop of the bomb at their target, whatever. So I
Hmm.
think that was like my favorite sequence because it was pretty like fast paced. It still had like and it just had like a good ending to that scene, which was Major Kong riding the missile as it fell out of the plane.
Yep.
That was like probably my favorite sequence in the movie, like those 5 to 7 minutes or however long it was.
You know what so what I kind of mentioned in the for my cinematography score. I don't know if you picked up on this. There were some parts just for the sequence in the plane scenes. There was a visual semblance to the way that Wes Anderson films, and I don't know if that's just Wes Anderson like doing old timey movies kind of thing. If that was something that was normal back then, but
What do you mean, like the number of cuts and stuff and how quick it was?
yeah, just the way that the camera would follow, like when they were doing the switches, and they would go switch, 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 and the
Yeah,
camera would,
exactly. No, I can see it. I can see
or
what you're saying.
so I thought that that was so interesting. That Wes, I wonder if Wes Anderson might have drawn some inspiration from this movie or movies like that. I thought that was really interesting.
Another quote that just came up that I remember is I gotta like remember who is who because of freaking Peter Sellers playing so many characters. When he's playing Captain Mandrake at the base, and after Jack Ripper has shot himself, and then the I don't know who the other dude is, the other military guy that's with him, he needs change for the payphone so he can talk to the president. That was a
Hmm.
pretty funny scene too. And then I mean, this is just pointing out another part of American culture, and obviously a satire of it is when he wants to get change out of the Coca-Cola machine,
Yeah.
and that soldier is like, you know what, you're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola
So
company.
I have the exact quote. He says, "Okay, I'm gonna get your money for you, but if you don't get the presidents of the United States on the phone, you know what's gonna happen to you? You're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola company." And he says it with like such an oomph. It's like a
Yeah.
mic drop. You know what I mean? I had a couple of my favorite scene of I think the entire movie. I think just my favorite part of the whole movie is how, like I said, they said that he improvised a lot of his lines. Peter Sellers.
Well, did he improvise for all of the characters, or like,
I'm not sure. I think it was him personally. I could
okay,
be
so for
wrong,
like
but
all of them?
that's part of the reason that so much of it is so natural. Like when the president is on the phone with the Russian president, and having this conversation, and it's like that conversation is probably my favorite movie in the whole moment in the whole movie when he's like, they're in the middle of literally there's about to be an act of war, and he's talking to him like he's like their husband and wife, or like they're like some weird kind of like lovers, because he's like or I guess maybe it's just really polite, and he's like it's very I'm good and you're good, and I'm fine and then you're fine and then we're both fine, and they're like laughing about it, and he's like, so listen, it appears that we're about to attack your country. And then at the end of the conversation, he's like, well, I'm sorry. He's like, well, I know you're sorry, but I'm also sorry. You can't say you're more sorry than I am, because I have just as much capability of being sorry as you are. We're both sorry. Like this very polite, like,
all of those phone conversations where you're only seeing one side of it and hearing one side of it was perfect. It was great.
but you can kind of like already pick up on what the actual, what the other guy is saying in the conversation.
Yeah, you can figure it out. But like to
Yeah.
think that he did that, like if he improvised some of it, that's great, man.
Well, here's where it really shows, and this is why it's just so natural. There's a lot of moments in that conversation where he's like stammering, like he's about to say something and he stops as if he's like listening to what the guy is saying. He's like stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is so
He's almost about to interrupt but doesn't want to.
Right, exactly. That, and when they're in the base and they're getting shot up on, Colonel Mandrake and Jack Ripper, which is that's a play on Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And he comes and Jack Ripper sits next to Mandrake and puts his arm around him, and the way that he's nervously giggling, or like nervously like chuckling, but also like sort of crying when Jack Ripper is telling him about fluoridation of water and how evil it is. And he's like, yes, sir, yes. And he just chuckles. That's all improvisation. And it's so natural. It's just so natural the way that he just, like, you can see how awkward and nervous the poor guy is. I just love how believable he's made those characters. Those are like my favorite scenes, of just seeing him just kind of just do his thing.
Yeah, basically react and act. That's pretty good for sure. I mean, the most scary about it is General Ripper, who starts this, like you mentioned, is because he thinks that the Russians are gonna take their bodily fluids, and it like stems from the fact that he himself can't like perform
right
sexually. So because of this, he has I don't know if he's concocted or if it was like a real conspiracy or what, or like, and he just ran with it, and he is causing the end of the world because of that. I mean, it's pretty hilarious when you think about it.
It's amazing writing. I mean, it's just really, really good writing.
All right, Faaraan. I don't know if I have anything else.
I do, but I think we could call it here.
Why, you think it'll be repetitive?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think it's watch the movie if you want to learn more. See it for yourself. This is a definite must watch.
It is a definite must watch for anyone that is remotely into movies, because this is a classic, like by all standards.
And it deserves to be, and it's going to be for a long time.
And it's like easy to rewatch and watch later in life and still appreciate everything about it. It's not one of those movies that ages because of time or because of like life itself. Like a movie you can enjoy as a 10-year-old, you might not enjoy as a 30-year-old. But this movie, you're going to enjoy any age you watch it at.
It's not cringy. For a 1964 movie, for a movie that's 55 years old, that's more than twice as old as, well, it's about, almost twice as old as we are. It is actually very, very to the times. If this came out today, I would think that it was just a movie that was in black and white, besides for like, little nuances in the dialogue.
Yeah, a little nuance, and then obviously the production, but... I mean, those things are easily forgivable. You don't.
Yeah. So definitely watch this movie if you have not.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Thank you for listening to this production of The Twice Over. If you would like to keep up with us, please subscribe wherever you listen, and do follow us at The Twice Over on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you would like to support us, you can do so on Patreon, or you can just tell a friend about the podcast. And finally, if there are any comments or feedback, please email them to us at comments@thetwiceover.com, or you can just tweet at us. The music you hear is from Amerigo Gazaway. Look him up on Bandcamp, he has some great stuff. We'll be back next week with another episode.